welcome to Envision, the show where we talk to successful entrepreneurs to find out what drives them, lessons they've learned in their business career, and thoughts on the Cape Fear region. I'm your host, Jonathan Rowe. We have two very special guests with us today, Jeanette and Jeff King, co-founders of SpecialitySoft. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the first question, you guys obviously have fascinating business backgrounds, but one would be remiss not to ask the question, which came first, the marriage or the business?
It's kind of interesting. Actually, it started with, I had a business, and I had already I knew I was going to have a business from the time I was 10 years old. And everything I did at that point was building towards that. And it was just kind of fortuitous timing. When we met, I already had the frame shop, which is still in existence in Pinehurst. And then from there, we met actually in the islands. And she had a career in corporate America, which was very successful with. But then she was a couple hours away from myself. And then when we were going, it was one of those, it was becoming a challenge. And then once we decided to get married, that's about the same time the software company was starting.
Yeah, about 6 months later, because I was traveling, leaving on Sunday, not getting home till Friday. Wasn't the great married life because I was traveling so much with my work. So that's when we decided we would put our two strengths together, mine in business management, operations, HR, and his in computer science and accounting, and start this company together.
In the way you describe it is very seamless. I mean, I imagine we have a lot of viewers that are, husband and wife or family members. How, especially early on, how was it as easy as sort of you said, you had your strengths and you guys focused on your strengths and have just always worked so well together? It
was more challenging in the beginning because it took a while to work that out. We both had visions of what the company should be and what our role should be. So sometimes we did overlap. And
I think that was something, it overlapped in the early days, and then we started to realize what person had the bigger strength in that area. Mm-hmm. And there was enough things to do that we slowly fell into our specific areas, which made it that much easier. I think that's something that kind of takes time.
Right.
But both of us grew up in family businesses, so
right.
We kind of understood that dynamic, which
right.
I think that helped. You start to realize where you need to spend your time.
You mentioned, Jeff, that you wanted to be an entrepreneur since age 10. What were some of the factors that sort of, that's a very defined goal that you've obviously achieved.
Well, it was one of those seeing a lot of different things, and actually the way my dad is career military. He was in the military for 27 years, so we grew up and we traveled a lot. But it was really interesting to have him push us that way. Because at one point I was thinking I'd go into the military, and saw the lifestyle my dad had, but he really kind of looked at the opportunity. Now my uncles had their own businesses down in a small town in Chiefland, Florida. And it's one of those, they'd been very successful and they had a lot of freedom. And that was kind of one of the things I saw was in working for myself, and that's the way I was looking at it at the time, but working for myself, I'd have the ability to kind of set the direction of where I wanted to go and what I thought was important. Now, I've worked in corporate America for a little bit, but that pretty much crystallized that's what I wanted to do.
Plus, Jeff's grandfather was a very successful inventor with multiple patents, one of which was very successful. So I think you learned and saw that from an early age. My dad also was a small business owner. So I grew up in a household that had that mindset.
Well, and let's talk about that a little bit, Jeanette, because I think, again, especially for our female viewers and viewers who might be working in corporate America, you've been very successful both in corporate America and now starting and growing a business. How was that transition, going from a much larger organization to the two of you?
It was very different because in the big corporation, I had a lot of support. If I had a legal issue, I called their legal department. HR called HR. I was actually in the home health care division, so if there was a QA issue or a nursing issue, I could call for help there. When we started this business for ourselves, then I started wearing every hat, and it was very different. Although we had a network of people that we could call on, advisors and people that we trusted, it was still different.
So let's talk now a little bit about SpecialitySoft, and how the opportunity sort of came about. I mean, both of you are art connoisseurs, and how you sort of merged that interest, maybe outside business with business to develop software initially for the framing art and custom framing industry.
So I've always had a pretty keen interest in computers from the time I was about 15 years old when they started coming in the early 80s. And it was one of those, everyone thought, oh, you should go into computers. And I said, yeah, but they all thought the hardware side. I was like, no, hardware is going to become a commodity. The opportunity I saw, and I continue to see to this day, it's the small software company with a great idea and good execution can go up against the likes of Microsoft. I mean, you have Google, you have Facebook. I mean, these companies came out of nowhere, and it's one of those few things you can do with a good idea. Well, along those lines, started looking at different markets. What did I want to do? And that's kind of, because I was kind of on this journey of looking at different things. That's when I stumbled upon picture framing. I was actually looking at picture framing, bicycles, and outdoor, camping and things along those lines.
This is the late 90s.
It was early 90s.
No, actually, this is almost the late 80s, early 90s.
Wow, okay.
And looking at what those opportunities were. And I had already worked at the Pinehurst Hotel and Country Club evaluating point of sale systems for them. And I got into that. I really enjoyed that. And it took the two sides, my accounting background along with the computers of how do you make something. And I saw these large companies. I mean, Pinehurst at the time was, it by itself was a $100 million resort. And the challenges they were having with IT. And we were running literally old, System 36 systems there, and they were trying to translate those over. And I saw that opportunity. And then once Jeanette and I got together, meeting up with her business side, I kind of, growing up with my parents designing the accounting system, their first accounting system for their business, I understood that side of it, and I kind of was used to being a little bit more on my own from that perspective. We'll just figure it out. And I think that was one thing that kind of helped balance things too, was, we don't have a legal department. We can figure it out. I know these guys and this guys. But I think that was one of the things that helped kind of make us balance too.
So really what Jeff saw was just a business opportunity. We didn't specifically choose custom picture framing as our first vertical. You just had the idea that we would develop retail point of sale applications for specialty markets, and custom picture framing just happened to be the first one that we went in because you had seen the opportunity there in Pinehurst to have that as your first business.
My parents were buying from this small little frame shop. It was in a building center, and it was just fortuitous timing. And I'm a big believer in the right thing at the right time. And that came available, and I had worked in my parents' business, I had helped them with their accounting and all that, but this was my opportunity to do a business, and this is 1991. And I went in, evaluated it, used a lot of the lessons I had actually, funny enough, had learned here at UNCW of evaluating cost accounting and things along those lines, but applied those and then made an offer on the business and bought it. And then bought the assets out and then started that. But I felt like I couldn't, you got to have that level of credibility. And if you haven't started a business from scratch or bought a business, when you're talking to an entrepreneur about, oh, well, come buy my product, and it's like, well, you don't understand. Well, yeah, I do.
Right.
I've been there and I've done it.
Well, and we'll talk about some of your newest products in a second. How do you balance sort of that, when you mention verticals, dealing with a vertical industry that probably does have a lot of consistencies or needs from the technology standpoint, where you're developing a software solution that's going to work across a number of businesses within that industry and then selling it? How have you guys been successful at that balance? Not only creating great software, but then getting the great software in the hands of the people to be successful with it?
It's been challenging, and it took a lot of hours. It really consumed us in the beginning. Actually, we developed the product for almost 3 years before we ever took it to market. And in the custom picture framing industry, it just worked out that the best distribution for that product was through trade shows. So we really gained a fair amount of success pretty quickly. And when we started in that market, we were targeting independent shops. Once we got into that market, we realized that the larger players didn't have software. So we started modifying our application and growing and adding multi-site capabilities, and went after actually the entire custom picture framing market, which kept us in that market longer than we thought we were going to be there. Yeah. We didn't move into our other verticals as quickly as we had thought. Well,
we had a level of success, and we were, with that success, kind of sometimes a little complacency. And it was one of those, and we were doing so well for so long, it's one of those, well, why look outside of this, just continue to focus on it and develop that market. But the one thing we did do is we developed out the software at the same time. And that was one thing we needed to go into some of these other markets. Picture framing, one of the reasons I chose picture framing was, trust me, from a technology perspective, they were 19th century. So you're taking something that's that far back and then really trying to bring it forward. And that's one of the things I'm really proud of that we've done in the industry. We've changed the industry from a technology perspective. I've really brought it forward. In some ways, the picture framing industry is ahead of a lot of the other markets we're coming into now. Because we did all that work, now we're being able to reap those benefits as we get in these other markets.
And how is it difficult? As a lot of people, again, thinking of some of our viewers, it's one thing to start a business and be successful and have the success you had with your initial product, but you mentioned the word complacency, and you guys have now reinvented, not the right word, but continuing to add products and new verticals to what you're doing. How easier or harder or both has that been now as you've grown the company and as you've had success and as technology has changed and a whole lot of things have changed? How has it changed now than when you first started?
Well, I think it's easier than it was to do it the first time because we had a less of a learning curve. But these markets are different, and the approach to them have to be drastically different, and our distribution strategies are different.
And board sports is one of
The thing that people don't realize, it's over a $20 billion industry. Picture framing is a $2 to $3 billion industry. But the thing that was striking about it as we got more and more into it, and there's several significant players in Wilmington. Wilmington, for some reason, is a hub for action sports on the East Coast, where California is on the West Coast. I was surprised. The show director, Roy Turner, for Surf Expo, which is the preeminent show in Orlando, he used to have a surf shop at Wrightsville Beach. So it's one of those, his connection back, Mike Duncan with Sage Island, Reggie Barnes with Eastern Skateboard Supply and Surf Supply. I mean, those are very significant. I mean, Reggie's the largest player out there.
Right.
And being able to meet with them and talk with them and see what those opportunities are and how we can help them. But our approach has always been, how do we help our end customer, the shop owner? And having that experience on both of our sides and being able to see the challenges they run into. That's what's kind of been our core. Whether you have any of our different brands, how you handle a customer, handle sales tax, handle gift cards, rewards is very similar. But then you have unique things. In board sports, you have rental, where you're renting products and things along those lines. You have different types of sales things that they do. So that's one of the areas that's a little different than, say, our picture framing. So what we looked at is you have a core product, and then you have these modules for these individual distros as we get into these individual industries.
One of the things that we've done is been able to generate a lot of enthusiasm among the staff, because maybe the developer that's working on the project for board sports is really into that market segment. So we did that with custom framing, match people who love custom framing with that product, and we're doing that with our other verticals as well.
And how many employees do you have at the moment?
About 12.
And let's talk a little bit about that and how because I think, you mentioned some of the partnerships you've had with some of the organizations with Board Sports and Reggie Barnes. You've also had a great relationship with the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, with hiring students. How have you been able to find, because sometimes as we've seen more and more tech companies, you guys are really one of the first ones here in Wilmington, you always hear there's not enough programmers or there's not enough of the right people out there. How have you guys been able to find the people that you've built your team around?
Well, that's probably been one of our biggest challenges along the way, although we are seeing that improving, and we are able to work with the college better now than I think we have in years past, actually bringing in some of the graduates out of the master's program.
Masters of Computer Science, MIS, which I was on the original board when they were starting that, and that was one of the reasons I really wanted to support that. And that didn't really exist before that. That's been really strong. I think it's been really important. And talking to a lot of other people in the community, a lot of other technical people, they're really excited about how that has come along and how that has moved forward. But that's been important along with the School of Entrepreneurship.
I think sometimes people have to try to recruit people into the area, because of the lifestyle and what a great place it is to live and all of the other benefits of being here. Because it is difficult if you're looking for a seasoned developer to find them already here.
And what sort of culture have you created? Because again, in the beginning, it's just the two of you or three of you and a fourth who would have been in front of us, but she's busy back at the office.
Right.
We're referring to your dog, of course.
Right.
But how have you created a culture as you've brought people in, whether it's young people or brought people to the region to work with you? How have you created a culture within SpecialitySoft?
Well, we're all very passionate about what we do. So we look for that, people that really embrace this and care about this, and they find it rewarding to both the process and the end result. We also try to create a culture of fun. One of the things we've just implemented recently is Friday afternoon dance party. So we all go around and pick the music that we like, play it. Some people do, dance a little bit.
Like the two of you?
No.
Oh, okay, all right. So you're in the background watching.
He's in the background watching, I'm dancing. And so that's a lot of fun. But we do little things like that.
And I think it's one of those, it's making that fun environment, but it took us a while to kind of put the right pieces together to get there too.
We have a great team, an absolutely great team, the best team we have ever had.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that's so exciting to us right now is that it's fun to come to work, it's fun for them, it's fun for us, we're excited about what we're going to do every day, and they see the possibility, and we're just really happy where we are and what we're doing and where we see the business going right now.
And let's talk a little bit about that. Where do you see it going? I mean, again, you've had some launches of recent vertical markets you've gone into with software. Where do you see those going, and where do you see SpecialitySoft going, going forward?
We see higher growth in those segments than we ever had in the framing. And we see a bigger opportunity, and we see it happening more quickly. And we've developed a couple of things that are add-on components to the point of sale that are going to really differentiate us in the market, and I think are going to be our secret sauce in those industries.
Well, and maybe that's a really good point. Again, thinking of our viewers who are watching who might be small business owners or thinking of starting a business. You're going to, you mentioned bigger vertical markets, larger size of board sports being, I think you mentioned 20 billion. You're going to have a lot more competition. There's going to be a lot more pressure on you. How is that affecting sort of how you're approaching it?
You would think so, but we have less competition in board sports. Part of it is because of market research. As we looked into the market, there's major players. There's the Microsoft, the QuickBooks, the Retail Pros, the CAM. There's those players, but they're horizontal players. They work in a variety of markets. They're not specialized around the industry. And there's pieces that we're putting in that are very, very specific to action sports. And the thing about action sports too is it's a lifestyle. And it's a lifestyle brand, and that's kind of revolves around that whole industry. But that's one thing. I've been snowboarding over 20 years. I've been mountain biking for that long. It's one of those, if you're kind of on the inside and you understand where they're going and what they're trying to do, it's a little bit easier. And I think the opportunity in that market is far bigger. But we have 3 major competitors in picture framing and probably 10 smaller competitors. We have nowhere near that in board sports.
Wow.
Gift is a little different. Gift, there's a lot more players in that, but it's not as big as you would think. And that's what we're seeing. That's why the real opportunities exist.
There are no competitors that have taken a similar approach to specialize.
And I guess maybe one of the things that I'm almost learning from you guys is that you be very particular about the markets you enter. Look for the ones that have the opportunity not only for growth but don't have a lot of competition, so you can establish yourselves.
Well, look for what the market's looking for, whether they understand or not, and that's part of the other side of the research of going into that, looking at, wait a minute, there's this whole gaping hole there that no one's really gone after. Now, it's very specific, and you got to find the right way to get to it, but if you can develop the right product, and ultimately, it's if you're making the customer successful, and we think we've got some formulas that people haven't thought of before. And as we've introduced it and talked to different players in the industry, wow, that would be amazing. I'd love to be able to do that. I'd never even thought of that. Bringing those innovative ideas to it, you get yourself established as that person that, hey, these are the guys you need to work with. Right. And it takes some time to build that, but once you have that in place, it can really take you very far. And I think that's why board sports especially will be much bigger. Gift is going to be much bigger also.
Do you guys feel rejuvenated is not maybe, I don't know, do you feel re-inspired by some of these?
Yes, I think rejuvenated is a good word because, with a combination of the framing industry has gone through contraction and consolidation, and then the last 2 years with the economy like it is, having this opportunity and this renewed enthusiasm and this renewed focus, I would say,
definitely
is very, very positive for us and the employees.
Yeah.
And I think it's also, it's kind of core to me. The action sports side, it's things that I've been doing my entire life. So from that perspective, that gives me a lot more enthusiasm about it and the different places we have to go. I mean,
we have to go.
We have to go. I have to go snowboarding in Park City because that's where the conference is.
Right.
But it's that type of thing and meeting a lot of that's the way it works. You spend half the day on the slopes, but that's almost as important as the day and night you're spending talking to everyone, getting a chance to really socialize with everyone and them understanding where you're coming from, you understanding where they came from. You get some very candid conversations that way. But and I know with Mike down in, they do a big thing in Cabo San Lucas that'll be coming up in May.
Yeah, Mike Duncan with Sage Island, who was on the show I guess a couple months ago. Let's talk a little bit about the area, because as I mentioned, I look at SpecialitySoft and I think maybe Visionaire as two of the pinnacle technology companies that have been here since, late 80s, you mentioned 90s, you guys have really grown with the area. How have you seen the area change? Because you're located in downtown Wilmington. How has this region changed as you've been going through this journey with SpecialitySoft?
Well, we've definitely seen, we're located at the corner of 3rd and Walnut downtown, and we've definitely seen our 1 block radius change. Just the way downtown is rejuvenating itself and upgrading and improving and beautifying, that's been a really positive thing to be downtown.
MLK wasn't done when we moved downtown.
That's right.
That's...
So I can get from our building to the university in 15 minutes, as opposed to 35 before.
Well, but I think, GE Nuclear moving here, and other companies starting to look at this area. I think there's a real opportunity in Wilmington, and we're really excited about that. Having been here since the late 80s and seen how it's really changed, North College and how all that has dramatically changed over time. But I think it's been the last 3, 4, 5 years that things have really changed a lot that come back to us. And specifically, the School of Entrepreneurship doing more and more, but then, the master's program for computer science and MIS. We've hired 2 master's students out of that have become full-time employees.
And we're interviewing another one this afternoon.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So, and that's something that, quite honestly, we couldn't get the caliber that we needed before out of the college. We could start some people, we had tried a couple different things with that, but it just wasn't successful. And these are high-level people that we've been able to bring in.
But also the lifestyle here. Yeah. The boating lifestyle. Jeff uses the bike trails that have been added. It's a wonderful place to live and work.
Well, we've got a couple people that bike to work now. Yeah. And I do from time to time. And it's one of those, I wouldn't have considered that before. They put in the Cross City Trail, which has been great. And little things like that, they don't seem like much, but they're really significant, a lot more than you would think.
Following on that sort of train of thought, would you say it's maybe a better environment to be an entrepreneur here? just whether it's lifestyle or finding talent.
Better now than 15 years ago? Absolutely, I would say so.
I'd say more than 5 years ago. It's gotten much better.
Yes.
That's great to hear. And is there anything, are there other things that either are happening or other things you'd like to see that would make it even better over time? Just again, from your, because I think you guys have a very unique perspective.
Well, I think we're going to have to make sure that we grow in a planned and controlled manner. I think that's going to be very important. And I think what you're attempting to do, or this center is attempting to do, by supporting businesses that can create more professional jobs is a really important piece of it as well.
We're looking to expand our company over time. We've got plenty of space to do it. And it's one of those, lifestyles are really important. We've hired people and brought them into this area specifically because of lifestyle. And I think that's one thing that's a huge asset this community has. I hope it doesn't go away or to get diminished. And I think it isn't right now, but I think that's the thing to be on guard for in the future. But it's right now, it's such a great place to live. From an active lifestyle, there's very few places like Wilmington around.
And I think it's important to preserve our history downtown as well. We've got to make sure that we...
And you are an historic building.
We are.
Right, yeah. How has your relationship changed from a business setting? You often hear sometimes, married couples over time will say, well, I can finish my spouse's sentence for them. Let's put this in a business context. How has your working relationship changed now? It's been 15, no, gosh, more than that, right?
Right.
15, 16, 17 years working together.
Right. Since 93, almost 20 years.
How has that dynamic changed? Again, for viewers who may be in a similar situation or wanting to start a business with a spouse.
Well, we enjoy it because we spend so much time working. If we didn't work together, we would not have an opportunity to be together that often. Even when we're not working, we're generally talking about work. Sometimes Jeff has to say, that's enough. Let's don't talk about work anymore today. But
I think that's the thing you have to watch is falling back into it. I think that's probably one thing we've tried to do more is rather than being 24/7, because we've done that for so long. We've had 15 years with the software company, and before that, the framing. It's one of those. At one point we had 3 companies going at the same time because we had a glass company that we sold to originally start the software company. And what's changed over that is it's one of those. the business has gotten to a certain level. It's taking a lot of work right now, but it's not like it used to be. We used to work 7 days a week. We worked 90 hours a week when we lived in Pinehurst. Now, that was great because there wasn't a lot of distractions, but I think it's taking a little bit more time and taking that rest. And I think that's one of the things we've tried to do. You know, we took recently, Cycle North Carolina did a big spring event up in Oriental, and we took the boat up and spent, you know, Jeanette spent some time reading and relaxing up there while I was out and doing the rides every day. But, you know, we're still spending a lot of time together. And I think having that balance of not being worked 24/7, getting away from that and doing some other fun things. And plus the other big advantage for us is we get the chance to travel together all the time. And we've gone to some pretty amazing places, you know, Tahiti and New Zealand, and we've traveled all over the U.S. extensively, but we wouldn't have had that opportunity if we didn't work together.
Somebody asked me once, what do you like most about working with Jeff? I said, I'm never bored. And they said, what do you like least about working with Jeff? I said, I'm never bored.
So I guess in wrapping up here, I mean, it's been such a great conversation. There's still, I mean, I wish we had more time to talk about some of these things. What, you know, if you could sort of wrap up with some advice for, I guess, people starting a business early on. I mean, you guys have so many different dynamics that you've learned from just the two of you working together and building the company. What very simple advice do you have people starting a business? You know, if it's a young entrepreneurs these days starting a business downtown, basic advice you might have for them?
Surround yourself with successful people, pick their brains, learn everything you can from others, and then make sure that you have passion about what you're doing. And once you start, just don't give up. Sometimes it gets very challenging.
And I think that's the thing. I think a lot of businesses fail mainly because they give up. And it's one of those not looking for that, the way, I mean, if you're 100% committed, and there's days in the early days we had no choice because it was bankruptcy if we didn't make it
Right.
work, that was at times the right incentive. But I think it's persistence. You've got to be persistent. And I think that's one thing people don't realize how challenging it can be. They see all the upside. They don't see necessarily as much of that downside. But it's one of those, if you can get through it to the other side, and that's like with the economy right now, getting through it to the other side, any businesses out there right now is much stronger than they went into this.
Well, it's been a real joy and pleasure to have you both here today.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thanks
Same
so
for
much.
us.
And thank you for joining us for Envision. We look forward to seeing you again next time.